background about me and why I got into crypto as well, as that's kind of where we're going with this conversation. So my background was I'm 31 or 2 years financial markets. So I grew up in that world. I grew up in the world of what is known as macro investing. Macro investing is when you look at all the asset classes everywhere around the world. So bonds, equities, commodities, currencies, credit, all of these things. And you try and look for what is the best return you can get. Maybe that's in India, maybe it's in China, maybe it's in the US. So that's the mindset. We have this 3D ever-evolving jigsaw puzzle in our heads of the world, driven by the global economy, hence why it's called macro, because it's macroeconomics. So it's driven by the business cycle trends of the global economy. So I did that. I was on the sales side for many years. I ended up at Goldman Sachs, where I started and ran the hedge fund sales business in equities and equity derivatives. My whole career basically had been getting to know the world's most famous hedge fund managers from kind of 1990 to 2000. It was like being taught acting by Robert De Niro or, Laurence Olivier. I mean, it's ridiculous. My daily calls would be Stan Druckenmiller, Paul Tudor Jones, the guys at Soros, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was it. Plenty of crises and exciting stuff happened over that period, very macro. Then I decided to make the switch in 2000. I saw the recession was coming and I wanted to invest and make money from it. So I moved to one of my biggest clients, which was the biggest hedge fund firm in Europe at the time, called GLG Partners. And I started and ran the global macro hedge fund there. So that was now me taking these bets on a global basis over that kind of very rocky period of 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003 into 2004. Then I decided I had enough and I moved to the Mediterranean coast of Spain and started writing macroeconomic research. I'd been around the hedge fund business longer than most people at that point. And I had a huge amount of experience, both in knowing all of the players and also being a player myself. So I started writing from that perspective, macroeconomic research called The Global Macro Investor, which I still write 17 years later. And that's read by most of the world's most famous hedge fund managers, sovereign wealth funds, asset managers, that kind of stuff. Really privileged position. And it's that privileged position that got to me where I am today, why I started Real Vision and why crypto, because they're all part of the same thing. So there I am, 2007, and I'm thinking the world is about to fall apart. And I'm writing about it. And, I'm one of the people that was, on the right side of that. And a lot of the people in the film, The Big Short, were clients of mine. And we all kind of knew what was going on. The world falls apart. Tons of people make tons of money out of it. Tons of people lose their entire livelihoods. This is not good. And it's not. And so I started asking the question because people come up to me in the street and say, why didn't we know? And I'm thinking, why did I know? Well, fine. I've got a lot of experience and I managed to piece together the jigsaw puzzle. But why does nobody else get to know this knowledge? This was wrong. And this was the rise of Occupy Wall Street. This is the rise of the anger of we're being screwed somewhere. We don't know how we're being screwed. And I believed in that too. Then I was in Europe for 2012. We almost lost our entire banking system, plus the EU itself. I remember having to go buy a generator and dried food because I thought we were going to follow Cyprus and we were going to lose the banks. Over one weekend, we would have lost the banks on Monday. The IMF forced Spain into taking an $18 billion bailout, which rescued it in time. Then eventually we end up with this Draghi, I'll do anything that it takes to stop Europe falling apart, essentially. And that stopped the tide. But the same thing happened. I was at the epicenter of it. I knew it was coming. We all made money out of it. And everybody around me, and I was yelling to everybody, listen, you've got to be careful. Friends of mine got destroyed in that in Spain. The property market imploded. Everybody's a real estate developer. Everybody got killed. Friends went bankrupt. And they were like, why didn't we know? And at first I'm like, I have been telling you this endlessly. But because I wasn't on television at the time, they don't take you seriously. I'm like, it's bizarre. I write stuff that the world's most famous investors read, but if I'm not on television, for an average guy, I don't have credibility.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. I, at that point, started having two tangents, which is realizing I needed to do something about it. That this disparate information level, that one group has everything, everybody else has nothing. And the other thing is I needed to make the world safer because we're kind of screwed. Because of this over-financialization, all the debt, that we could lose the system at any point. Nothing had gone away. The printing of money was just a way of wallpapering over the cracks that the earthquake had left behind. So I'm like, okay, what can I do? So the idea I had with a bunch of people was to try and set up the world's safest bank. And And I tried to go and do that. It was slightly arrogant or stupid, probably, to try to do because it's not easy. And we got together quite an amazing group of people. Still, we tried in Singapore, we tried in Switzerland, we tried in the US. It was just hard to do. The system is not there for you to try and change. And so in that process, a friend of mine, one of my clients, tapped me on the shoulder and said, you should take a look at Bitcoin. This was 2012. And I'd been aware of Bitcoin. And I took a good look at it, and he explained to me both the store of value proposition and the blockchain element, that anything could be trusted on the blockchain. I looked at this and I'm like, oh my God, this is the future that we need. Because the problem we've got is when a firm like Lehman Brothers goes bust, nobody knows who owns what. And somebody's going to get screwed in that equation. Just one of the very issues at the center of the system. Nobody knows who owns anything. So I started looking at that, and I started writing articles and invested in it first time in 2013. 2014, I started Real Vision because I wanted to democratize the very best financial information. Nobody gets access for an hour to the world's most famous hedge fund managers unless you invested $100 million. Real Vision changed that equation entirely and said, listen, forget all this sound bites on CNBC of 3 minutes. It's worthless. We're going to give you an hour of the world's most successful investors, the best independent analysts and strategists, and then you have a level playing field. And that was a game changer. I mean, since Real Vision started in 2014, there's probably been 200 podcasts that's copied that model. So this is this movement. There's two things. There's the democratization of information, and then there's crypto. So crypto, as it starts building out as an ecosystem, you start to realize that, okay, this is now the fastest adoption of any technology in all recorded human history.
Dude, you have to say that again. This is the idea that's gotten me obsessed with crypto. Is you talk about how there's something broken. We're getting screwed and we don't understand where. And now this new thing has come along, but it's entering the system at a moment where it's sort of peak distrust and peak sort of throwing your hands up. You're giving up. You tried occupying Wall Street. It didn't work. You
tried voting in Donald Trump. You've tried voting in Joe Biden. You've tried everything, and nothing changes.
So hit people with that quote again, because this is something that, and I'll give my background for people that are hearing me talk about this stuff for the first time in a minute. But that quote about this being the fastest adopted technology, I think is important.
The internet from 1990 to 2000 grew at 63% a year. That was the fastest adoption of any technology in all recorded history. Prior to that, mobile phones was the other one. But what happens is the internet technology and the mobile phone technology allows for these networks to be built. And once that network's in place, it's faster to build the next network. So in India, for example, they've just basically given out free data to every mobile phone in India. So guess what? Data usage is the highest in the world. And so their internet scaling becomes faster. So the internet was huge, as we all know, and it remains huge. So at 63% a year, it then flattened out over time as more and more people got adopted. So at 1997, it was growing at 63% a year, and there was 140 million users of the internet. In 2021, there are 140 million crypto users, and it's growing at 113% a year.
Jesus.
Double the speed. Now, this is where humans struggle. Linear numbers and exponential numbers. Because it's exponential, it means that growing at 113% a year, we're going to go from 140 million people to 1 billion people by 2024. I mean, so when you go back and how you introduced all of this. So if you know that something is being adopted at this speed and it's a network of money at its core, and you can buy an infinitesimal fraction of it, so everybody can buy 10% of their net worth, then everybody who takes this opportunity will probably have the biggest opportunity in history to make money.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the episode brought to you by